So let's just do screen 2.
Rock and roll. There it is.
All right. All right. So you should be able, I guess you can see my screen now. We're good.
Yep, I can see it from here.
All right. Perfect. So welcome everyone. So my name is James Petty. Today we're going to be talking about modules and beyond, more kind of building your first module and kind of what the structure of modules are and kind of how they work and whatnot. So a couple things. So I don't have the chat set up. So I just moved 2 weeks ago and still get my desk set up. So I don't have all my monitors yet. So I can't put this in the chat up. So if you got a good question, I guess there's only four of us here, or 6 of us. So just go ahead, feel free to unmute yourself or kind of raise your hand, and Mark and Joey or someone can pass your question along. So kind of before we get started, so first off, I absolutely hate PowerPoint, so I have a grand total of 5 slides. So the first one being the title one, and the second one kind of being a little bit about who I am. So like I said, my name is James Petty. I'm a cloud and data center MVP for the 2020-2021 Microsoft, I guess, fiscal year for Microsoft. I'm the president and CEO for the DevOps Collective. A lot of you probably know us as PowerShell.org. We run a few events such as the Automation Summit that was supposed to be in October this year. It's not going to happen, but also probably the PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit that happens almost every year in April up in Seattle. It didn't happen this year kind of due to COVID, but we are supplementing that with a 24-hour live stream on October 15th. So hopefully we'll be able to see you all there for that. So I'm the co-founder for the Chattanooga PowerShell user group, as well as our PowerShell Saturday that we have in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The co-host of PS Power Hour. So that's a live stream we do every 2 weeks. I posted the link to our past videos in the chat. Hopefully maybe that can get transcribed up into the show notes before it goes up to YouTube. And also one of the lead organizers for the 24-hour live stream, PowerShell and DevOps global online conference, the hashtag PWSH24 for those of you following along on Twitter. The CFP for that is still open, so if you're interested, it closes on September 15th. Then we'll have selections made in the next couple of days after that, with the show being on October 15th UTC. We're kind of going from about midnight to midnight in the UTC time zone here in the United States. We're looking at about 4 to midnight Eastern time, and then you have to do I live in the Eastern time zone, so you got to do the conversions from there. But that's kind of what we're looking at as far as U.S. time zone slots. All right, so again today we're going to be talking about PowerShell modules. Sorry, you're going to hear my dogs barking a little bit. So this is kind of straight from the docs of Microsoft on what a module actually is. I'll let you kind of read that on your own time. But kind of for the shorts, though, PowerShell modules are kind of a way for you to organize your scripts and functions and to easily use and shareable files, whether you're going to just consume them just yourself or whether you're actually going to publish them up to an internal Git repository or internal file share so you can share them out with others. There are 4 distinct types of modules. We're only going to be talking about 3 of them today. Well, 3 of the 4. So script modules is probably the ones that you're most familiar with, and we're going to spend the most time on because it's the most common. Follow real close. We'll also look at the manifest type modules. They're kind of really the same thing, just difference on how they're called. Binary modules, we're not going to touch on that, but that is essentially taking a script or a manifest module, converting that into a DLL file for the machine to use. Is the benefits for that are they can't be copied or manipulated or anything because so everything's kind of transcribed to binary. And then a dynamic module. We'll talk a little bit about that. So dynamic module is simply a module that's kind of created on the fly for you to use and consume at your own, and then it kind of as soon as your session dies, it dies with you. All right, and so that's all the PowerPoints that I have. I said I really don't like PowerPoints, so we're gonna go here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to increase the font on this, and let's see here. View. Oh, I don't remember how to do. I don't remember how to do this.
Control plus and minus.
Control plus. There we go. Okay, perfect. Oh, too much. All right. So thank you. So the first thing we really need to do is, so let's talk a little bit for a minute about where modules live on your machine. So it can be in a number of places. Where's that? There it is. So they can live in a number of places on your machine. Here, let's just clear my screen so that we can see exactly where we. There we go. So these are all the built-in places your machine runs. So if you run this, environment variable PS module path, and then I simply just split it on a comma. If you just run this, it's going to give you a really ugly string. So I just split it on the commas just so we can get it. Just so we can see it a little better. And so so again, these are kind of the default places where your modules are going to live. You can append to this as you see fit. So if you have a special folder on your machine that you just love to put your PowerShell modules, you can definitely do that. Just kind of be wary of any place that's connected to a network share. So you can put a network share in here, and if you do that and your machine doesn't have access to that share for some reason, whether it's offline or that NAS or something goes down, your machine is gonna try and keep trying to connect that share before you can get to a PowerShell, PowerShell window before it loads your profile. So be careful with that if you're going to do a network share. Again, so these are the most common places here. Program files, obviously program files for PowerShell 7. If you're either one of these, this is where you're going to put things that are on your machine that are going to be consumed by everyone in your on your system. So kind of use the if you're installing a module, use the everyone flag. That's where everything's going to install. By default, this is where everything you install from the PowerShell gallery is going to install as well. So if you did install module. I think PS80 Health is something that Mike Kanoskis, from Raleigh. There we go. If I spelled it right. So if I do that, and just so you install this module, it's going to install it directly into that, into that C program files right here. The C program files, Windows PowerShell modules is kind of old and antiquated. I don't really kind of know why it's there, to be honest, but just don't put things there. You see Windows System 32. This is where your machine, that's some of the built-in modules are going to go. You as a user should never be putting anything in here. One, is protected by UAC, so every time you put something in there, you have to confirm that UAC prompt. And two, you should just be kind of putting things here in the program files, or putting. Usually, you can put, if you put a folder in your desktop called PowerShell, you can add that in there, and it will consume it as well. So that's kind of more about how where they live. Again, so most time when you do this, so you're just going to be right here in the C programs, PowerShell modules, or this PowerShell 7 modules folder. Obviously this is new, came in PowerShell 7. This was kind of the default up until 5.1 and later.
Sorry to interrupt, but you said that we can ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
That my work machine, it's an image, so C program files gets blown away. Could I put it on a network? My personal drive, home drive on the network, or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah, so you can, and if you have a desktop, that's great. Like I said, speaking from experience, if that network share ever goes away, then it's going to take forever. Now, if you have, let's say you have your My Documents folder redirect, you use the offline sync feature to redirect your My Documents folder to your home folder. Then you can point it there, and whatnot. But as I said, you can put it on a network share. I highly recommend against it, because if that share ever goes away for some reason, and going away being a loose term, meaning that your computer cannot talk to that share for any reason, it's gonna take forever for it to boot, and it's gonna give out a big old nasty error. And especially if you have any modules, you know, that you've written or whatnot, and you have them listed in your profile to automatically and install them. It's just, you know, bad things are gonna happen. All right, so next we'll just kind of dive right in a little bit. So I'm going to go out on a limb, kind of assume that most of us are at the very least familiar with functions. I think is that probably like an inaccurate statement, because essentially that's a module is just really it's just kind of fancy place to kind of put, you know, to put your functions and your scripts and stuff to share them out with. So if I take this function here, so let's just, you know, using the approved verb nouns. So if it's a function get name, and for very simplistic sakes, all we're going to do, we're going to tell it to just write out to the screen, you know, the who am I command. So if we do that, so now, you know, I can run my function get name, and it's just going to pipe out to the screen, use, you know, my domain and my username that I'm in. But as you can imagine, if you have a whole bunch of these, so to kind of think what the AD module looks like, or the VMware PowerShell or Azure. I think, you know, there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of these functions that you know that they have written, they have exposed, and you don't want to have to load these functions each time, because the problem is with the way I've written this function get name, as soon as my run space is gone, my session. As soon as my session is gone, so is this function. So if I were to close out this entire PowerShell console, poof, gone, no more function. I'd have to reload my function every time. Now I could, you know, put this in my profile, but, you know, if I start trying to put all of the, you know, VMware and PowerShell commands in my function to get them to load every time, my profile's never going to load. So we need a better way to consume these. So we're just going, hence where modules come in. So I said there's a couple different types of modules. So we're going to talk about the script-based modules first. So that's where anything, so when we write our PowerShell, in any of our PowerShell scripts and files, we use the .ps1 notation. A module simply is a PSM1 PowerShell module. As you can guess, they're very creative in their naming scheme. So you just kind of write here anything you want and just put the extension to PSM1. So here we have two functions. Again, very simplistic. There's absolutely no reason why you'd ever want to do this other than for this demo. But we have a get name and a get computer name. All we're doing is just, you know, printing out an environment variable. Just kind of showing the functionalities. I'm not trying to do anything fancy here. So just so we can make sure that our sessions are not contaminated around here. So we have so I have a Windows terminal. It's over here on my other screen. Let's see here. What did I call this? Sorry, I forgot to do some cleanup. There we go. All right, so we're gonna bring this. So this is a Windows Power. This is oh, I should also state, just in case anyone's curious, I am running the latest version of PowerShell 7. At least what is publicly available, not preview, I should say. Here, both in the Windows terminal and here in VS Code, we're both running 7.0.3. Just, you know, just in case anyone was curious. All of this still holds 100% true for 5.1 and later. So there's absolutely nothing here I'm showing you that is PowerShell 7 specific. Everything is said is backwards compatible. Actually, everything I'm showing you is backwards compatible all the way up to like version 2. So if for some reason you still have those old 08 Exchange boxes hanging around and you're stuck at PowerShell 2, rest assured everything I'm showing you is still going to work just fine. All right, so I assume you're familiar with how to install a module from the gallery. You know, we saw that earlier. You know, install. So if I do install module PSAD health and I don't specify anything else, it's going to go out to the PowerShell gallery and it's going to install that. But I can also, using the same command, install the module, and then I can give it a path. Oh, nope, I guess it's not a path. Oh. If I do install module, and then I can do the working directory, so the working directory I'm in, so the /, and then the location of my PSM1 file. So this is going to install that module. No, it's not. Try to get install module. Well, this was working a minute ago. Oh, I'm sorry. I got my commands mixed up. It's not, if you use install module, it's going to go out to the gallery. You have to import a module if it's a local. That's my bad. Import module. And now the module, my module.psm1 is going to be installed. Should note that whatever you have right here, that's the name of the module that it's going to be called. It's not going to get its name from anywhere else. It's just going to get it from what is right in front of the PSM1, capitalization and all. Not the capitalization matters in the PowerShell to begin with, but so again, the name that you're gonna, whatever you want to call your module, that's the place to name it.
Does that hold true when you're doing a PSD1 as well?
Yes.
Interesting.
At least I'm fair. We'll look at that in just a minute. Because we're going to talk about the manifest modules next.
Okay.
All right. And so you can see, so if I do the get module, my module is called my module. I have two commands: get computer, get name. That's the wrong command. Yeah, so get computer name and get name are the two commands that I have in my module. And again, very simplistic. All they're doing is puking out the screen, which is all, again, for this demo, is all I need them to do. Now you can put anything you want in here. You can put as many functions in here as you want. You could, like I said, you can do whatever. You can put whatever you want here inside this PSM1, just so long as they're, so at the end of the day, as long as the functions you have here are you can call them and expose them. And of course, if we ever want to get rid of a module, so because I use this import module, as soon as my session is ended, here that that module is no longer there. So actually, I could close this. We'll relaunch the Windows terminal here. And we can see that, the term get name is not there. And if I get module, so we can see that module not there. So as soon as that session is gone, so that goes away. One of the ways around that is you can, there is a way to import the module and tell it to do it every time. And then you can also, the way I do is if I have something that I absolutely have to have, it will, I'll put that in my profile. For instance, I have the Active Directory module set up in my profile so that I 100% without a doubt make sure that it imports every time I open one of my PowerShell windows, so I can make sure it's always there. All right, and that is that is script-based modules in a nutshell. So it may seem very simplistic, but whether you want to make this, whether you want to put advanced functions in here and kind of get real fancy with your, with your parameter validation, because at this point, once you have this PSM1 here, so all you're doing is just making your functions, turning them from basic functions that we have now into advanced functions. But other than that, everything's still going to work the same. As long as you have this PSM1 file, it's going to expose every function you have in here. All right, so that's all I have for these script-based functions. We're going to spend the rest of the time talking about the manifest, which is, I think it was Mark that chimed in asking about the PSD ones. So we're going to take a look at these manifest files. So I started writing my own, kind of my own demos for everything here. And then I remembered that Mike Robbins is an absolute genius and has a whole lot of PowerShell modules that are out there. And a lot of people you kind of use, it's the framework. It's not the framework he kind of came up with, but he has written a lot of blog articles in the past about how he writes his modules, which also happens to be the kind of de facto way of how people write modules. So I was just going to use his Mr. Toolkit module. For one, if you don't have the or I say it's the Mr. Toolkit, it's MR from Mike Robbins toolkit. If you don't have that installed, it's a fantastic module that you should absolutely install. It has a lot of goodies in it. So we'll talk about this. So this PSD1. So PowerShell, and the D stands for I don't actually know what it stands for, but I always like to assume it stands for data. So just kind of think of this as a metadata file. It has a whole bunch of so we have our hash table in here. It has a whole bunch of stuff in it. So we can create our so we can create a blank manifest file with a new module manifest, and we'll do a path. So the folder is just a folder called new, the new.psd1. This does have to have the same name as your PSM1 file. If you don't do that, then your module is not going to. I don't believe your module will load if they don't have the same. They don't have the same name. They're not going to be associated with each other. So this is the blank file that this kind of comes out with out of the box. You can do this one of two ways. You can come through and you can manually change this, or everything here in this hash table has has a tag, a tag complete parameter you can do all this with. And you can also, if you're doing this a lot, you can also use another platform called Plaster. Something that DevOps Collective and PowerShell.org just took over about a month or so from Microsoft. Kind of one of their abandoned is not the appropriate word. It's a project that they want to dedicate time to, but it's really low priority for them. So we kind of took that over as stewards, and Jeff Hicks is taking kind of over that. But you can take Plaster, set up a template, and then you can run a Plaster, your Plaster script, and it'll set everything up kind of the way you want. We'll kind of run through this just a little bit. So the module version, you always got to put a module version in here. People argue until they're blue in the face on what your numbering scheme should be. So really, I like to look at it. It's like whatever makes sense to you. If it's a personal use, just always make sure it's going up. You never want to go backwards. And if it's an internal project, obviously, as long as your internal documentation matches whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to have 2 decimal places. It could have 6 in it if you want. It could have 2. You can whatever your set name scheme is for, at your work is something that something between you and your teammates. So you would do that. So all your modules do have to have a unique GUID. It will automatically create one for you. You can always do the new GUID if you absolutely wanted to if you wanted to put a note in there, but it'll assign one for you. If you don't explicitly define an author, it's going to take take your username. So again, my username is James. So it just took James in there. I don't have a company name set in my computer. If I had a company name set, it would pull that information. It tries to do a little bit of legal work for you, kind of putting the copyright in here. And then the rest of these, it's gonna blank out and it leaves it empty and comment it out, which is perfectly fine. But if you're gonna go through the trouble of using a manifest file and a manifest type module, you're probably gonna want to go through, put in and start filling out the description of the module. So if you're going to push this out to the PowerShell gallery, this description line, that's where the description, that you're going to get for the PowerShell gallery is going to come from. Minimum version. So if you're writing something and it's not going to run the PowerShell version 2, then you want to, you put the minimum version of 3. Obviously, you want to comment that out first if you wanted to. Or if for some reason you're writing something that's only it's only PowerShell 7, you put PowerShell 7, and that's going to be the minimum version. You're gonna put in there. So there are different PowerShell engines on your machine. You have like 3 or 4. If I can remember, nope. All right, so I don't have WinRM enabled on here, but you do have a couple of different PowerShell engines on your machine. You have a 32-bit and 64-bit. You have the default one, which is where you hit when you're doing remoting. So you can kind of change those in here as well. Why you want to do that, I don't know, but you could. Again, so you can start getting kind of in the weeds with .NET versions and stuff. If you absolutely wanted to, if you're writing things for ARM processors, we could go kind of on some of these, but some of these other ones that we'd want to start looking at. If for some reason there was a PS1 file that you wanted to call to do something, maybe you're trying to you're using HTML and you have a PS1 file that has already CSS in it. It's a really way out there type of example, but it's probably one that kind of conceptually fits without actually visually seeing it. So you can tell it to process a PS1 file. The one we're going to look at has an XML file that it'll process. And here's kind of where we start getting. So if you're going to use a manifest file, and you have to do this functions to export. There are 2 ways to do this. So if I do this like this right now, and I had a whole bunch of, we'll just go back here, we can look real quick. If I had these, and I was using this manifest file, and I just left it like this, I'm not going to expose any of my modules. So you can do a star, which will input, obviously star means everything. There's a huge debate ongoing for eons on whether you should use a star here and not. And the best practice from security professionals is to never put a star in here, because then someone could just come in and add something malicious right here, and now that function is automatically exposed. So what you want to do is you have to explicitly put out, you explicitly list the names of the functions that you want to expose. And there are automated ways to do this. Again, there's automated ways to do this functions to export, so they will automatically generate kind of everything. So if you wanted to give everything aliases, we'll kind of go, and that's rest. Yeah, so that's very brief walkthrough of the data file. So let's go over here. So I have Mike Robbins' toolkit already downloaded. I downloaded this straight from GitHub just a little bit, or a couple of days ago, I should say. So we'll just kind of take a look at his manifest file. Again, so it has everything that we just talked about on it. But so we go down here and we'll look at these functions to export. So he, single quote separated by a comma, has just everything that are. So if for some reason Mike was wanting to work on this and he just was working on something and doesn't want to expose because he's still working on it, or it's just, we'll talk about public and private here in just a few minutes. Something that he doesn't need you as the consumer of his module to be able to type into the console. Then he's not going to put it here. These are the only things that he's exposing. His module could do a whole lot more, but this is the only things that you're going to be allowed to do. All right, so we'll talk a little bit. So I could import module MR toolkit, and that will download it from the PowerShell gallery. But so we did want to show. So I did want to kind of show everyone, so we can import our module locally. So this is how more than likely you would. instead of just imagine for a minute, instead of saying this is Mike Robbins' toolkit that we're going to be playing with, just imagine that this is Mark, this is Mark or Joey's or something, Denver PowerShell user group module he's sharing with everyone. And he's just, instead of putting it up on the gallery, he doesn't want the whole world to have it. They just put it out on, on Meetup, and you downloaded it locally and you put it in, so if you put it in one of these, in one of these locations, where you go? Okay, so I close that. So if I do that, so if we put it in our C program files, our So if we put it here, if we put it here one of these locations, as soon as we start up the next time we start up PowerShell, whether it be 7 or 5 or 4, whatever, 6, whatever version you're running, it's going to automatically install these modules. So I think I meant to go through here. We have a little bit of time, so we'll kind of go through these. I just take a look real quick at what these look like. Not what they look like, but just kind of show what. Yeah, Windows PowerShell modules. Again, so Pet's another great example. These are the things that the PowerShell loads automatically every time you open it. So again, program files. These so I have automated labs, great for building labs. Pester, PowerShell Git, PS readline. So again, it loads all these every time. So if I were to put this MR toolkit right here, close out PowerShell, open it back up, bam, it's going to be there, no problem. But then that kind of defeats the whole purpose of this presentation, doesn't it? All right, so we're going to clear our screen here just to get some real estate back. All right, so we're importing the module. So .sourcing, and then we're going to import this. So this manifest file. It's going to take a minute. It's going to think about it because Mike has a whole lot of. Yeah, just because there are a lot of functions in here. That Mike has in here. So we see circuit command. All of these are in this module. This Mr. Toolkit. That he does have here. So we can take a look. So again, another huge debate that's kind of coming back. Actually, it's actually kind of coming back. Is this private? This difference between a private and public. So you could, if you had a PSD1, you could just put a new all of your. It's going to visually see it in Explorer. It's going to work better for this one. So if I were to put, new, so I could have a folder with a whole bunch of PS1s, and then I have my my PSM1 file, and just tell it to put everything that's in that folder. It's going to grab it. It's going to grab all those PS1 files. But the most popular way that you're going to see modules written is with this private and this public folder. So Mike is actually just changing the way he does things, which is hence the debate I was talking about. So private and public, internal, external type naming conventions. So this public folder, as we see, is where all these commands that we're seeing, or all these functions that Mike has. Again, this is why I wanted to use this Mike's toolkit as an example, because I couldn't write an example any better than what Mike already does. So Mike has all of these modules, or all these functions here that he's written, and then he has one. So let's take this one. We'll open this here. We'll just kind of grab this one. So Mike has these broken out, one PS1 file per function, which is the absolute best way to do things. One script, one file, one function. That's all it should do. If you want to make 2 functions, make had two different PS1 files to do that. It helps keeps everything a lot smaller. It helps you keep up with your changes a lot better, and it prevents you from breaking things unintentionally. So that's my soapbox and my rant for that one. So Mike has all of these. These are advanced functions. You don't have, they can be simple functions. You don't have to have all that. The difference between a simple function and advanced function is this commandlet binding little thing that has, that you can put there. So it just has everything in this one PS1 file, and said so that's how you should write things. This right here, where'd it go? Oh, I think I closed it. Yeah, so having these two functions in the same file, if you're kind of getting to the point where you're sharing things, that again, I know I'm harping on it, but it's because it's something that I truly believe in, is to break this up into two different files. It doesn't matter if you have 100 different files in here. It's still going to load really quickly because all these files are itty bitty. The biggest one's 11 kilobytes, and the smallest ones, half of these are 1 kilobyte, or some are 2 and 3. It's also going to make your module load a whole lot faster by doing this. If I were to put all of this in one gigantic PS1 file, that file is going to be huge, and it's going to take forever to load. And if there is an error in it, then all of a sudden none of these are going to work.
To the thing earlier about the functions to export.
Uh-huh.
A convention that I've seen a few people use, if you're not doing an automated build process, is for their public functions, they'll do the traditional verb-noun, but for their private, they'll remove the hyphen. So then when they go in here to the functions to export, they just do ***, and that way, as long as you follow that naming, guarantees all of your public goes out. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That I haven't seen that, but so kind of get to now. So kind of like Mark iterated. So everything we have here in the private folder. So Mike doesn't have. There's not many here, but if for some reason you had a module that called another module that your user or that you don't need your consumers to be able to type on the keyboard, that's where you would put everything in here. It would still load all those modules and do everything in the back, but because it's here. Because you don't put it into functions to export, its user is not going to be able to do that. Now, I should say this is purely for aesthetic reasons. Public and private, internal and external means 100% absolutely nothing. It's just a convention that people kind of stuck with on how to organize their our files. I could take all of these, like I said, and put them right here in the root of this folder, and everything is still going to work perfectly fine. There's no reason it has to be here in the public folder. Again, I can rename this public folder to external or internal. And again, everything is going to work just fine. You just have to make sure that if you're going to use an internal, external, public, private type file structure, that you have this is what your PSM1 file looks like. If you're not going to put everything in here, if you're going to use a manifest file, this is what your PSM1 file let's look at. And this all just says, get our child item in the path where we're running, get everything in the public, get all the PS1s there in the public, exclude, in here, we have exclude all of our pester tests and our profile. And then this is actually, so we're dot sourcing it, and then we're kind of we're telling it to load every single one of those PS1 files. So again, so we can do this public and private, internal, external type scenario. That is kind of the standard convention that most people follow. I'm not going to say everyone follows it. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't follow it. I'm just saying that's kind of the preferred method out there. So if that's what you're going to do, then make your PS1 file look like this. I meant to grab some links. Mike Robbins has a great blog article written on why he chose this way and why it works. And also Warren Frame, aka Rambling Cookie Monster, also has a fantastic article on how to do the public private with a whole bunch of demos and examples on his blog. That's a fantastic resource. And so this is just, so we talked about, so in this PSD1 file, we talk about we can load an XML file. This is an XML file that we have written for one of the configurations. That's a little bit beyond me. I don't get into XML and making things look super pretty like that, but I also don't write hundreds of externally facing commands and put them up on the PowerShell gallery and keep them updated on a regular basis, like Mike Robbins and Jeff Hicks do. All right, so I think we're getting close to the top of the hour. So that's all of the content that I have. I know it seems like we may not have touched on a lot, but said whether once you have this, once you have these basic frameworks down, I said everything else is just the exact same. The only thing that's changing is what you're putting here in these files and how complicated you want these files to get. So anybody, I know there's not that many people on the call. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I can try one. Thanks for presenting and hosting.
Thanks, Thomas.
And so if you have functions with the same names in all these different PS module folders, is there any sort of order or override, or is there going to be like a conflict?
Yes, big conflict. So everything has to have a unique name, kind of regardless of what you're doing, unless you're going to do. So actually, this is great. Let me clear. Oop. Where did my cursor go? Oh, okay. That's so VS Code froze. So let me get a Windows terminal here, and I'll kind of show you exactly what we're talking about. Nope. Try to get Windows terminal here. There we go. All right. So you should be able to see my Windows terminal here. All right. So I can run the command git VM. Nope.
I hate it when my CMs don't work.
Yeah. So if you run the command git VM, by default, Windows 10 comes. I have Windows 10 Professional. I have Hyper-V installed. That's where my labs run. So I'm running on the Hyper-V. The source is the Hyper-V module. But if let's say you're running a PowerShell, you're a VMware shop and you want to run PowerCLI, for some reason they trade a lot of the same names, because I guess the theory is you're not going to be running Hyper-V and PowerCLI. So if you wanted to run, you'd have to do VMware.PowerCLI. You have to do this command called allow clobber. This allow clobber command means take whatever my source is. So in this instance, the VMware PowerCLI has a command called git VM. I have to allow it to overwrite what is already existing on this Hyper-V command. It wouldn't be in there twice, but it's gonna, because I told it to allow the clobber, then that means it's gonna allow something to have the same name, but I can't, at this point, I can't run git VM and specify what module I want it to use. It's going to run the PowerCLI one and not the Hyper-V one. So you always want to make sure all of your, I guess to answer your question, Thomas, you want to make sure everything you have is unique name, unless you get to the point where if you're just importing modules, like I said, everything's here in this session. Once this session closes, it's gone. It's until you import it again. So I guess if you want to name things the same name, as long as you weren't running them in the same session at the same time, it's fine. But usually you'd want to try to go with unique names.
Okay. It's like Java.
Yes.
It needs a path to specific JB, like a Java library, I guess it is, or installation. And you have multiple, like on my machine, I have 3 PS module paths. One of them is actually on OneDrive. And
Okay.
the other one is this system32, and another is in program files. I'm just wondering, you know,
Oh, what happens if you put the same one in each?
yeah, and or even worse, the same one, different versions.
Ooh, now that's a great question that I don't think I want to know the answer to. That might be something I might go try on my own, but I'm afraid of what I would assume that it's just whatever order it imports them. So I think it goes on that list. It goes from top to bottom. So whatever the last one to load is the one that it would import. But it could also see that's imported and error out, and then bad things are going to start happening on all those errors.
Seems like if you're allowed to have multiple module paths, that means that there would be some sort of override. Otherwise, they would just, you know, have one module path. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm brave enough to try this real quick. Hope I don't break my machine. What is this? My module.psm1, this guy right here. So I think if I copy this and I put it here, PowerShell modules. So if I put it here, continue. And then, oh, no, it has to be, if it's going to come here, it has to be in a folder. If I put that there, that's why I say, yeah, UAC gets in the way a lot. And what was one of my other ones? Oh, wow, why is this like frozen?
And then the other thing is current working directory is probably also a module path, right? That's by default.
Oh, it's not a module path. I think I can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. Okay, it looks like the PowerShell engine on my VS Code's crashed. So your current working directory is not going to be, by default, a module path, meaning it's not going to install it or install everything there automatically, but you can import in .source really easy from there. Okay, so I was just trying to find program files, PowerShell. I didn't see a PowerShell. All right, so I have this guy in this folder. Actually, I should. So all right, so even though my PowerShell module did crash, so I exited VS Code, which ended my session. So because I did put that in there, my functions are now, they got automatically imported. Just like we expected. But if I put this in PowerShell 7 modules, all right, so now we have it in both places. It's in 2 of the locations that we have here. I put it here in C program files PowerShell module and C program files PowerShell 7 modules. No, I did these 2. Yeah. So let's see what happens. So we're going to close this. Actually, we're going to keep that up. We're going to get our Windows terminal back out. We're going to see what happens. Or we'll just close this out. All right, our sessions are closed. Well, that's interesting. Okay, yes. Okay, interesting. So it looks like it did only import it once. I don't know from which location it actually imported it in from though. So I would have to do more testing on that to see exactly, which one that's going to import and which one's to do for it. Because that was a very simplistic PSM1 file. I don't know, without getting there and putting a manifest file and, getting the version numbers and whatnot, which let's see, we're already we're at the top of the hour as it is. But I can definitely look into that more for you and kind of see what we come up with.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, James, since I saw you've got it loaded there, and it's kind of on topic of that, you've got Fred's PS framework module, I believe.
I didn't think I did, but that doesn't mean.
I thought I saw it in one of your folders there. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, how about that? All right then.
Don't know if you've had a chance to play with it, but in terms of the various frameworks that are out there for helping you scaffold and build out a module, didn't know if you had any preferences, personal experience between them as to what works best, or maybe what is most approachable for someone that's just starting to write their modules.
No, so the only experience that I have with writing modules is Plaster. Let's see if I can find his. That's not. So again, so Plaster kind of being a framework that. I cannot. Of course, now I'm trying to find it. I can't. I can't find Jeff Hicks's blog articles about it. But Plaster kind of being. See what. The illustration he uses is called a scaffolding your modules with Plaster. So Plaster kind of being kind of a skeleton that you can write. Has a couple of script files that you can write in there, not manipulate. You put whatever you want in there, and then you can just you run the Plaster command, and it will spit out a new module, kind of exactly how you want it. Whether your private, has your private and your public. If you want it to have those, it'll put it'll fill out your PSD1 file. It'll do your PSM1 files already for you. If you can kind of put that in with some of your release pipelines, it can help you automatically do these functions to export for you. It can implement the implement the version, the version number for you and accept and everything. So that's kind of the only experience that I personally have. With that, I know a lot of people kind of built their own little modules on, built a module to build their module frameworks. It's kind of whatever works best for you.
Kind of the turtles all the way down mindset.
Yeah.
All right, well, unless anyone else has got questions or comments, we can probably go ahead and call it at that and let everyone get back to their holiday festivities, family time.
All
right.
All right, well, there we go. Yeah, so, I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with me on, I guess, if for those of you that are U.S.-based here on Labor Day, and if you're not U.S.-based, thanks for coming hanging out on a Monday afternoon, evening, kind of, I guess, where with all these virtual meetings, anyone can be anywhere. I guess it really.
That's true. We've been getting some people from overseas occasionally.
Yeah, like I said, so it's I'm out on the West Coast. I know it's 9 o'clock here, and it's 7 o'clock your time. It's 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for everything.
Yeah. No problem. And Thomas, I'll try to. I don't know if you follow me on Twitter. It's at PSJamesP, but I will. I'll look into how those modules, what order those modules load in, and either write a blog article about that, or tweet something out for you.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool to actually see if there's like an order of precedence and where it loads from and how it overwrites, if at all.
Yeah, now I am super curious about that.
There goes the rest of your night.
Well, all right. Well, I appreciate it. So I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your Monday, or if for some reason you're on the other side of the international date line Tuesday, and have a great week.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
All right.